Number 5.
At number 5, A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1989. A Nightmare on Elm Street is a video game released on the Nintendo Entertainment System in October 1989, loosely based on the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. It was developed by Rare and published by LJN. The player takes on the role of an ordinary teenager. Additional teenagers can be controlled up to 3 players with the use of NES Fourscore. The game takes place in the neighborhood of Elm Street and is played from a side-scrolling perspective. The game's environment is inhabited by hostile characters such as zombies, cats, dogs, skeletons, bats, and minotaurs that will attack— Wait, what? Minotaurs? Okay, anyway, these monsters will attack the players. Being attacked at a certain number of times will cause the players to lose a life. Because the game takes place around midnight, certain areas are initially locked off from the player and require a key to be collected for later access. Within the individual buildings, the player must collect the bones scattered throughout the level before being able to leave. When all the bones are collected, a boss battle with Freddy will commence. Defeating Freddy will both allow the player to exit the area and earn the player a key that allows access to a new area. The game implements a feature known as the sleep meter. This game mechanic indicates how close the characters are to falling asleep. If even one of the characters falls asleep, all of the players will be transported to the dream world. Within the dream world, Dream Warrior icons appear that, once collected by any player, permit transformation into one of 3 dream warriors: Ninja, Acrobat, and Magician. These icons appear only in the normal world and can be used in the dream. This is a fairly cheap and easy collectible to come in proximity of. A link below will direct you if you're interested in purchasing a copy for yourself.
Number 4.
Next, we move on to number 4, Laser Ghost, 1989. Laser Ghost is a horror-themed shooting gallery arcade game released by Sega in 1989. The game is patterned after the films Ghostbusters and Poltergeist 3. There are 3 mounted guns set up on the cabinet, representing the 3 members of a ghost hunting team. The game puts the players in the role of Bill, Max, and Carol, who rescue a little girl kidnapped by a blue gargoyle, as well as protect the city from ghost menaces. The game can be played with up to 3 players simultaneously. It is controlled by a positional gun with 2 buttons, one for regular fire and one for limited use special weapons. In addition to the gun, the cabinet also features an on-screen aiming reticule in which a mirror projects a red light beam away from the gun each time the player makes a shot, giving the illusion that an actual laser ray comes out from the gun to the target. The game puts 3 hunters in 5 stages where they must destroy waves of ghosts, each one ending with a boss battle. Each player's damage zone is represented by a third of the screen, where their stats are also located. A player receives damage if their third of the screen is hit by an enemy. Ghost attacks deplete the player's life bar, which can be replenished by shooting a medical kit that some enemies leave after they are destroyed. Laser Ghost for the Sega Master System is completely different from the arcade original. In the game, players must protect a young girl named Catherine, who is being held captive in the Haunted White Manor. Using either the joypad or the light phaser gun, players eliminate various hazards Catherine encounters as she attempts to escape with her soul. We recommend the arcade version, but it is extremely difficult to find. This is just a great horror rail shooter, and if I'm not mistaken, one of the first.
Number 3.
Sitting tight at number 3, Sweet Home, 1989. Sweet Home is a survival horror role-playing game developed and published by Capcom. It is based on the Japanese horror film of the same name and tells the story of a team of 5 filmmakers exploring an old mansion in search of precious frescoes hidden there. As they explore the mysterious mansion, they encounter hostile ghosts and other supernatural enemies. The player must navigate the intricately laid out mansion, battling with the enemies and keeping the player characters alive, with the limited weapons and health restorative items available. In retrospect, Sweet Home is considered a landmark and is often cited for laying the groundwork for the survival horror genre. It has served as the main inspiration behind Resident Evil, which was a massive critical and commercial success, launching a multimedia franchise. Later games in the series continue to pull inspiration from the game through the use of quick time events, inventory management systems, and ghost story elements. There are 5 playable characters who can venture solo or explore in teams of 2 or 3. The player can switch between characters and parties at any time. The 5 characters each have a unique item that is necessary to complete the game: a camera, lighter, medical kit, lockpick, and vacuum cleaner. Sweet Home places an emphasis on puzzle solving, item inventory management, and survival. The player must backtrack to previous locations in order to solve puzzles using items acquired later in the game. Enemies are encountered randomly and the player must fight or run away through the menu-based combat. The battles are presented in a first-person perspective, and there are a variety of enemies including zombies, ghosts, and dolls. The only way to restore health is through tonics scattered across the rooms in the mansion. The story is told through cinematic cutscenes and through optional notes, such as messages and diary entries of the past visitors scattered across the mansion, which also provide clues for solving puzzles. The game also features quick time events when the player comes across a trap that requires a quick decision to be made or else be killed. When a character dies, they remain dead permanently for the remainder of the game. Items that serve the same purpose as the dead character can be found near their corpse. For example, should the team nurse Akiko die, the team may find pill bottles which can be used to heal ailments, depending on how many characters remain alive after the defeat of the final boss. There are a total of 5 different endings that the player may receive. There are versions available online. We have a link down below if you're interested in obtaining a copy.
Number 2.
Our number 2 entry is Rampage, 1986. Rampage is a 1986 arcade game by Midway. Players take control of a trio of gigantic monsters trying to survive against onslaughts of military forces. Each round is completed when a particular city is completely reduced to rubble. Rampage was inspired by the monster films King Kong and Godzilla, and the platform game Donkey Kong. Up to 3 simultaneous players control gigantic monsters who were formerly human. The game's protagonists are George, a King Kong-like gigantic gorilla transformed by an experimental vitamin; Lizzie, a Godzilla-like dinosaur lizard transformed by a radioactive lake; and Ralph, a gigantic werewolf transformed by a food additive. As monsters, they need to raise all buildings in a high-rise city to advance to the next level, eating people and destroying helicopters, tanks, taxis, police cars, boats, and trolleys along the way. The monsters can climb any of the buildings, punching them to pieces on the way down will eventually reduce them to rubble. If a monster takes too much damage, it reverts into a naked human and starts walking off the screen sideways, covering its modesty with its hands. Smashing open windows generally reveals an item or person of interest, which may be helpful or harmful. Helpful items include food or money, while dangerous ones include bombs, electrical appliances, and cigarettes. Rampage is set over the course of 128 days in cities across North America. After this, the cycle of the city repeats 5 times. After 768 days, the game resets back to day 1. As game developer Brian F. Collins stated, the hardware couldn't support that much art. Only Connecticut, Delaware, Mississippi, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, South Carolina, and Vermont are spared from the monster Rampage. Just like Xenophobe on our list, this is also made by Midway Games, and a link down below will direct you to purchase a copy, shall you want
it. Number 1.
And finally, number 1, Splatterhouse, 1988. Splatterhouse is a beat-em-up arcade game developed and published by Namco. It is also subsequently the title of a series of games released in the home console and personal computer formats. The game was heavily influenced by the American slasher films and works of H.P. Lovecraft, and is homage to the violent horror films of the 1980s. Due to its violent nature as well as some questionable enemies, the horrifying theme of this game may be inappropriate for young children and cowards. The player controls Rick, a parapsychology student who is trapped inside the West Mansion. After his resurrection by the Terror Mass, Rick makes his way through the mansion, fighting off hordes of creatures in a vain attempt to save his girlfriend, Jennifer, from a grisly fate. Players of this game will also recognize a number of Western horror film influences, such as Friday the 13th and Evil Dead 2. Similar to many side-scrolling beat-em-up games, Rick can only move in a two-dimensional environment. He has the ability to jump and can punch and kick. Rick also has a special attack where he will perform a drop kick that sends him skidding along the ground, damaging any enemy he hits. Rick also performs a low kick, a low punch, and jumping attacks, as well as pick up and use various items placed in the levels. All of the levels consist of walking left to right with occasional auto-scrolling segments. However, alternative pathways through sections in the house are possible by falling down through holes or jumping up onto ladders. In this way, branching the gameplay is possible. Levels accumulate in boss fights that take place in a single room. Unlike traditional side-scrolling fighters, boss fights have varying objectives and styles. This game has spawned a few sequels, even a 2010 remake. Its gore and violence was over the top and could be enjoyed by any horror fan. All the games in the series are pretty violent, but we had to pay respect to the first entry with Splatterhouse. A link can be found below on where to purchase a copy of the classic versions and newer versions as well. We hope you enjoyed our list, and there are other great horror games out there. These are 10 of our favorites that came out in the 80s, and help pave the way for some of the favorites today, like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Until Dawn, Left 4 Dead, and many others. As usual, we would love for your continued support with our YouTube channel. You could help by simply subscribing to our channel and ringing the bell to turn on notifications so that you get a notice every time we post, which is typically once or twice a week. We like to release a review video every Tuesday and other random content on other days just to keep it fresh. Remember to click the link on the end of the video for more on how to win a free horror mystery box courtesy of Gorehounds of Horror. Also, please drop suggestions for videos down below. Any comments or ideas that you might have. We will start off by doing shoutouts. So check out our Facebook group to learn more on how to get mentioned in one of our videos. Thanks for watching 10 horror video games from the 1980s, and we will see you next time. Have a horrific day.